ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930 present The Drive.
It is Friday, February 21st. Your drive begins now on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann. Our text line this hour brought to you by Clark's Pump and Shop. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. We got a lot to get into, a lot of unpacking to do here today. Last night, the Thundering Herd getting the win on the road, taking on Old Dominion, and got the victory 81-77. So the Thundering Herd breaking a two-game losing streak. Obina and Achille Killen led all scorers with 24. So that was a must-win. And I hate using that term, but it was a must-win for the Thundering Herd. Marshall had to have that game, as Marshall right now in sixth place in league play. There's a lot still to be determined the next few days. Marshall's got a game on Saturday against App State, and then after that, Marshall comes back home, takes on Old Dominion again. We know Marshall can beat Old Dominion, but can Marshall beat Old Dominion twice? Also, depending on the result with Marshall and App State. I mean, App State, they have a little bit more to lose right now than the Thundering Herd, as they've got a better spot in the tournament. That is coming up sooner than you think. So there's a lot still to be determined over the next few days, but the good news is Marshall got a game that it should have won. That's, I think, the one takeaway from this. This was a game in which Marshall should have won. So now the Thundering Herd will go at it again, taking on App State. That's going to be in Boone. We'll talk a little bit more about that with you here in a bit. We're also going to have that game for you go on the air high noon tomorrow. Hope you can join us right here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Now, what's happening today? Well, we get a baseball final. First up, Georgia Tech beating Marshall in 7-12-1, so not a good start to the road trip against Georgia Tech today. Softball is at the Clemson Classic. It was a shutout for Jules King as softball won 5-0 there. Tennis has got a duel. First up, Illinois State won that one 4-0. So some good news there for Marshall tennis. Some big news in the high school ranks today. We found out that Donnie Mays is stepping down as the head coach at Hurricane High School. So that's a big loss there. Hurricane has been one of those really strong programs over the last 3 seasons. So Coach Mays is stepping down from that. Of course, we've got a full weekend ahead of us. We've got Marshall coming up tomorrow. Of course, we've got to get ready for the next few days. We got Tuesday and Friday at the Cam Henderson Center, and we'll get into all of that. But I want to hear from you. Our text line this hour, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. We'll break this Marshall game down here in a bit. Also, how many of you after the Marshall game, since it was an early game yesterday, the Herd playing at 5, it was a weather decision. Marshall had to travel early and get to Old Dominion and then played that game. It was a 5 o'clock tip. So the Thundering Herd winning the game. And then after that, how many of you had the opportunity to be like, okay, let's flip over, let's see what this hockey thing is all about with the finals, the championship of the Four Nations face-off with Canada in the rematch, looking for a little revenge against the United States. And I think it lived up to every single thing you could possibly ask for. And again, this was thrown together in like a year and a half, this tournament. And it was basically an all-star break tournament, and you thought to yourself, okay, this will be nice, this will be pretty cool. You know, they're playing for a cup. You know, it's going to be a fun little thing, and this turned into something that I think captivated a lot of people's imagination. You know, we had a lot of interaction with people talking about it. I was surprised, so it didn't end the way I wanted. USA lost in overtime 3-2. Connor McDavid, regarded as the best player in hockey right now, wide open in the slot. Whoa. There were 3 players on the other side of him. I'm like, what are you doing? And he pops it in. And my first thought was, thankfully, not Sidney Crosby doing it again. if you go back a little bit, the way I do, going back to 2010, the Olympics there. So, great tournament. I think it illustrates what it means if you do it right and you put some meaning behind some of these all-star games. Now, can you do this every year? Can you have something this intense? And that's going to be the mix between the players want something like this and the owners allowing something like this to really happen, because we've got some players that are hurt and injured right now. USA wasn't at full strength. I'm not using that as an excuse as a fan of Team USA, but you've got a few players that are out right now, recovering, recuperating a little bit. Some will be short-term, some will be long-term, because this was not a all-star game where you're going out, you're just playing, you're having a good time. You might get serious the last few minutes of the game and really get into it. But this was full tilt, fast-paced, hard-hitting, everybody's laying it out there, hockey. And you're not going to get that from the NBA All-Star game. Football, you're not going to get anything to that level. Baseball is the only all-star game that I think has a legitimate shot of continuing to be relevant. And, of course, baseball is not a contact sport the way hockey is or football is. And that game has a lot more meaning. It used to have more meaning growing up as a kid before interleague play, when those players didn't see each other until either a World Series meeting or the All-Star game. And so the All-Star game meant a little bit more, at least when I was growing up, a little younger. It's like, okay, what would it look like if the American players played the national player? And now there's so much crossover. That has lost some of its special meaning in that format, but still, the home run derby, that still has a lot of relevance. It has more relevance to me than the slam dunk contest and the three-point shot contest. I mean, get the best out there. I'm not sure that I want to go back to an all-star weekend format. The skills competition, not necessarily what I'm excited about. The home run derby, everybody likes the home run, so that can stay. But three-point shooting contest, I don't know how exciting that's really to a lot of people. Slam dunk contest. Until the best of the best get in there and play, and what I mean is your superstars getting out there and competing, being a part of that, make it special, then it just doesn't have the same appeal to me. And so I don't know how, and I hope that we're going to be able to one, enjoy the afterglow with this, but how does hockey go back to, okay, let's just have an all-star game. And there will be an all-star game yesterday. That's going to sort of be like prelude to the Olympics, because NHL players are going back to the Olympics. First time in too long. Just, let's be honest, too long. The best players should go. I mean, that's what made the Dream Team special. You got the very best going to the Olympics. Now, the world has caught up to the United States in so many ways in basketball, but still, the very best going to play. And I think that in NBA terms, the very best should still be going, because the world has gotten better. So it's more competitive now. It's not just this one-sided dream team comes in and rolls everybody. There's some really good teams that can be put together on different sides of the ocean here. You don't have to just worry about this being a one-sided affair in the Olympics. But in hockey, best on best, you're going to have a tremendous Olympics, I think, with best on best. And so that captivated a lot of people. Did that make you, if you watched it, did that make you want to watch hockey more, get into it, become a fan? Will you gravitate more towards, say, are you a Columbus Blue Jackets fan now? Hey, I want to go see the Blue Jackets. I want to go see the Penguins. There are some teams in the area. I mean, the Washington Capitals, that's not a stretch for some. Carolina, you can say Detroit as well. You've got some teams that you could travel to and get to see a game. Are you one to be more involved, interested in that? I actually saw some people last night, and again, It's social media, so take it what it is. But there were actually people on my feed, at least, saying, hey, you think we get Marshall hockey back? Can we get Marshall hockey going, Division I hockey? And again, few and far between, I'm sure, with those. But I did see those. So would you support Marshall hockey? And I'm not talking club hockey. I'm talking actual Division I hockey at Marshall University. Now, it would be more of a northern sport. Not too many teams in the South playing college hockey, so this would be more of a northern sport. But could you see in the near future Marshall branching out to something interesting like hockey? It won't be a Sun Belt sport, but it could be something that would be different. You don't necessarily have to do that in the Cam Henderson Center. Obviously, you could have a smaller building, a smaller arena for something like that, still with the ice surface that you need to play. I know that's going to cost a lot of money, and where's the money coming from? That's probably going to be the big question. But I did see kind of some of those comments, and I'm thinking, hey, I know that's a pipe dream right now, that absolutely. But could you see some ice put back at the Marshall Health Arena? Could you see ice surface being installed, and then you could have games at the arena? That was, I think, something I would have just loved to have seen when there was ice the first time. Have a Marshall hockey program start up, because there are several MAC schools you could play. There are teams you could play. It would be fun, but again, I know we're reaching here right now for future things that might not happen. I know WVU has a club hockey program. Marshall used to. It fell off the map, it feels like. I haven't heard anything from that in years. And so if it still exists, I don't even know about it. It doesn't seem to be something that was really well run, well publicized, but I think there would be people that would be interested in that. Of course, one game, is that enough to inspire a new group of fans? 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Let's get into this basketball game when we continue. We'll talk hockey a little bit later on as well. You can jump on the text line, brought to you by Clark's Pump and Shop, when we continue on this edition of The Drive, ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
Hit the road with the all-new University Ford. Shop our inventory of new Fords and used vehicles starting below $20,000. Fifth Avenue, Huntington. And online at universityfordwv.com. We are University Ford. Driving tradition forward.
Stalwart Insurance is the name for insurance in the tri-state. They are committed to delivering tailored benefit solutions with thoughtful, strategic planning with valuable professional services. Stop by or call Stalwart Insurance for your homeowner's insurance needs. Stalwart Insurance is located right beside Kenny Queen Hardware on Route 10 in Barbersville. Call Stalwart Insurance anytime at 304-552-3883. That's 304-552-3883. Or visit them online at stalwartinsurance.com.
Buddy's All-American Barbecue is now in Milton. Enjoy all your favorite Buddy's classics like pulled pork, brisket, ribs, and more on East Main Street in Milton. Buddy's All-American Barbecue, the home of great barbecue, ice-cold beer, and killer wings in Huntington and now in Milton. Chris Miller, CEO of the Dutch Miller Auto Group, and Mike Kurtner, CEO of Kindred Communications, on behalf of flood relief for Southern West Virginia.
Chris, I'm from Chatteroy, West Virginia. A little holler that's close to Williamson. I have friends that need help. Exactly what can we do?
Mike, the flooding is devastating. In particular, Mingo, McDowell, Lincoln, Wayne, and Boone counties were hit really hard. We need food, clothing, supplies, anything that can produce energy, from generators to liquid propane tanks, socks, shoes, you name it. People need help down there.
Chris, one of the nice things about what's going to happen here is this relief will go to the people that we know, and they need you now. 100% of what you give will go to flood relief in Southern West Virginia.
These people need food, water, clothing, supplies, cleaning materials, anything that can provide power, you name it. And this is the best thing about West Virginians is when stuff happens, we get together, we rally around each other, and we help. And that's exactly what we're here doing, Mike.
Make your donation now. Go online to kindredcharities.org or visit any Dutch Miller Auto Group location. Our friends need your help now.
At Poca Valley Bank, a handshake can still mean the start of a great relationship. We've been greeting customers with a handshake since 1908. Why settle for less? If you're purchasing your first home or planning for your future, Poca Valley Bank is here to support you with personalized service and local expertise. They are your trusted advisors. Why settle for less when you can experience banking with a team that truly cares? Poca Valley Bank, where relationships matter. Visit PocaValleyBank.com. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Hit the road with the all-new University Ford. Shop our inventory of new Fords and used vehicles starting below $20,000. Fifth Avenue, Huntington. And online at universityfordwv.com. We are University Ford. Driving tradition forward.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your basement. There's a pair of overalls that overall you're not so into anymore. A perfectly good laptop that hasn't sat in your lap in months. And even more stuff, but still no jobs? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed, and they're the stuff inside your stuff. Even inside that winter coat that moved with you to Phoenix. Our job is to unlock those jobs, and it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs.
Hi, this is Dave Wilson, host of Metro News Talk Line, and you're listening to The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
Thank you, Dave. Welcome back to today's edition of The Drive. Our text line this hour brought to you by Clark's Pump and Shop. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. It's being reported that last night's Four Nations Face-Off Championship, the overtime game between Canada and the United States, 9.3 million viewers on ESPN. That makes it the most watched NHL game in, I believe, 30 years, maybe? That in itself is a feat. So, good game last night, not the way we wanted to go. We'll get into that a little bit later on with you at 304-396-TALK. 304-396-8255. And of course, the other big news of the day, ESPN ending its relationship with Major League Baseball. So that is $550 million in yearly rights fees gone from MLB. And I was following some of the reports on this. MLB tried to make it sound like it was a mutual decision. ESPN pretty much said, no, we're ending the relationship, opting out. And so after this season, what does that mean for baseball? Will MLB find a partner? Now, of course, how substantial was the ESPN package for what ESPN was paying? How substantial was that package? And, of course, it was Sunday Night Baseball. I mean, I'll miss seeing the Sunday Night Yankees game, right? Or the Sunday Night Red Sox game. That's kind of how it felt always. Like, Yankees are back on TV on Sunday night. Oh, look, it's the Red Sox back on Sunday night. So that's going to be an interesting next year to see how MLB is able to find a new partner or split that up a little bit more. Will that go to streaming a little bit more? And Major League Baseball accused ESPN of just downplaying baseball. And I know for a lot of you, baseball is more of a regional sport. You'd rather your hometown announcers or your team announcers talk about your team. That's pretty much baseball in a nutshell. This isn't something people are talking about nationally, I don't think. And that's okay. It's something that you talk about your team, the day-to-day of your team. I think that's what makes baseball a little bit more successful, because it's one of those sports where, hey, if you're a Reds fan, you're a Pirates fan, you're a Reds fan. I don't necessarily care about what's happening with the Orioles or the Dodgers. I care about what's happening with the Reds or the Pirates or the Guardians. So big disruption coming up for MLB, for ESPN. Just cut back on the baseball programming, and they're spending a lot more time, of course, on the NFL. There'll be NBA, obviously. PK Subban for NHL. Hockey coverage was everywhere, so the worldwide leader might be ramping up more on that. What's that going to mean for ESPN's future over-the-top programming, trying to come up with its one platform to serve all? And reports are that ESPN won't have Fox Sports offerings as a part of that new platform. So, our dream of just cutting the cable cord and picking up one streaming package for sports, ESPN and other sports that we care about, maybe still a few years away. We'll get your thoughts on that at 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. But I thought that was fascinating. I had a couple of people ask me about that today. Like, hey, did you see that? Yeah, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. Sunday Night Baseball, ESPN, sort of been a fixture as long as I can remember. But we move our attention to basketball. Last night, the Herd getting the victory over Old Dominion, 81-77. This one at halftime, I felt good about it. Marshall went into the half leading 41-26. Obina had 10 points at that point. Second half, it was a little dicey. Let's not lie. Marshall, I don't want to say they held on. The team didn't hold on, and the last second basket made it just a little bit closer. But in the end, Marshall got the victory. Obina had 24 points. He was 11 of 14 from the field. 1 of 3 from the three-point line. Had 4 blocks, also had 4 rebounds. Big story for me was Michael Dawson, 15 points. 6 of 12, 1 of 7 from the three-point line. In the immortal words of Coach Charles Huff, got to clean that up a little bit. But a lot of them were good shots. And so he had 7 rebounds, had 5 assists. Sure, he had a turnover, but he did have a steal as well. Obina had a steal as well. Jacob Gibbs actually had 2 steals in that game. Dzane Mingo had 12 points. He had 6 assists, 6 turnovers, though. So I'm not going to let him off the hook for that one. And then Nate Martin, 11 points, 5 of 9 from the field, close to a double-double. He had 8 rebounds, 4 turnovers. The Herd had 17 turnovers, 21 assists, but 17 turnovers. Old Dominion stayed in the game, 10 steals. That's a big one there. You look at where a lot of the points came from. Marshall outscored Old Dominion in the paint 42-34. And the turnover battle, points off turnovers, wasn't as bad as I thought it could be. It was 12-11 Marshall as far as points off turnovers. But second chance points, Old Dominion led that category 15-9. Fast break points, that's one that I'm not happy with that number. 19-8 in favor of Old Dominion. And then bench points, 10 each. Free throw line, that's a big one for Old Dominion as well. In the first half, 7 of 10. Second half, 14 of 21. 21 of 31. Marshall, in comparison, 11 of 17 from the free throw line. So right there, 10 more points from the free throw line. A lot more as far as the opportunities were concerned. It was fairly even in the second as far as shooting. 15 of 26 for 58% for the Herd. 17 of 32 for 53% for Old Dominion. Marshall, 4 of 8 from the three-point line in the first half. 2 of 9 the second half. Old Dominion, 3 of 9 that first half. 3 of 10 the second half. So the three-point line, 6 threes for each team. About the same amount of opportunities. They shot about the same, 35.3% to 31.6%. But I think the free throw really helped keep Old Dominion in that contest. It was an empty building. And, of course, the weather had a lot to do with that. So the energy, you probably had to bring your own energy. 3,839 was the reported attendance in this one. but it didn't even come close to maybe 1,000 there. And that's weather-related as well. But the game was played. Marshall won. And so the Herd gets the road win. Marshall needed that road win. Hopefully the Herd can get the win in Boone on Saturday and then come back home, win the last two, and then let's just see where everything falls. Maybe Marshall can end up 5th, 4th maybe. That would be nice to see if Marshall could end up in the 4th spot. But the standings are still going to be a jumbled mess until these final games. And, of course, that Marshall game against App State on Friday going to be a late one, going to be nationally televised. So that's going to be a showcase game for the league. I'm surprised the Herd and App State got picked for that game. Absolutely surprised by that. It's not a battle for the top spot. It could be a battle for maybe one of the upper spots, and hopefully the Herd will take advantage of being on the national TV stage again, the national spotlight. I hope Marshall's playing for maybe a 4 spot to get into that position where Marshall's going to be one of the top 4. A lot of things are still going to happen, but I think at worst case, Marshall's at 6 right now. Marshall can hold that position. That's not so bad. I'd rather have that than start out on day 1 of the tournament. We'll take a look at App State when we continue. We'll look at those standings as well with you. And we'll get your text on our Clark's Pump and Shop text line, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. And is there a future football game against a P4 opponent on the horizon for the Thundering Herd? Well, there could be a opening for the Thundering Herd to maybe try to take advantage of. We'll talk about that when we continue on this edition of The Drive, ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
Now is the time to add on a new bathroom or remodel your old one with the latest up-to-date bathroom fixtures from Mutual Wholesalers, 710 5th Street, Huntington. Come in today to Mutual Wholesalers' beautiful showroom and see how your new bathroom will look. Check out Acre by Max. Have a new bathroom this year. Mutual Wholesalers, locally owned and operated, 710 5th Street, Huntington. Call 304-525-9118.
Stuck in a state of falling behind, struggling to keep up with kids, finances, insurance, and life? Well, let your State Farm agent help you simplify and get to a better state. With State Farm handling your auto, home, and life insurance, you'll have more time to handle everything else. More money, too. Adding State Farm policies can earn discounts that could add up to 40% and help you get ahead. Call an agent today and get to a better state with State Farm. In Huntington, John Garden, 304-525-1116. And in Barbersville, Marcia Slater, 304-736-6100. Metro Community Federal Credit Union has been serving the Huntington community for 70 years and is proud to announce our newest location in Lavalette is now open. Wayne County residents, you now have access to a modern banking facility, a full range of services, advanced technology, expert financial advice, and even a smart coffee kiosk cafe. Learn more about Metro Community Federal Credit Union online at metrocommunityfcu.com or visit us today on 5th Street Road.
Equal housing lender, member NCUA.
Hey Tri-State, Frank's Place is where friends hang out with friends. Stop on by for happy hour from 4 to 6 p.m. and a lot of daily specials. If you're a sports fan, we have what you want. From the biggest game in professional football, NBA, NCAA basketball, and the NHL. First responders, stop by Frank's Place and check out the specials we have for you. Frank's Place, located at the River Place Plaza, next to Fratelli's. Check us out on Facebook for weekly updates and specials. Frank's Place, your home away from home.
No two people learn the exact same way. So how did Babbel become the award-winning language learning app? We thought of you, all of you. Take Sierra. As a visual learner, she uses Babbel's wordplay videos.
Today I'll share a quick lesson on shopping in French.
Merci beaucoup. Keith is a be in the room with real people kind of learner. So he loves the live online classes with our language experts.
Okay, class. Vos está pronto.
Estamos prontos.
However you learn, Babbel makes it easy. Try Babbel for free at Babbel.com. Babbel.com.
Okay, forest animals, today is a new day. Kids are coming to the forest, and it's up to us to make their visit a good one. Sparrow.
Yes?
Have you practiced the most popular bird songs for the year?
Of course.
Catchy. I like it. Okay, River.
Dude,
How's the temperature?
It's a refreshing 52 degrees, man. Perfect for a little riverside shoeless relaxation.
Ah, good. Owl, you here? Course. Who's asking? I am. Look, you know the drill. Sleep during the day, scare the kids at night. Perfect. I love my job. Oak Tree?
What's up?
Still in the same place I left you last year. That's what I like. Consistency.
Well, it's not like I'm going anywhere for the next couple hundred years.
I know. I love it. Turtle.
He's not here yet, man.
He's late every morning. You'd think he would have learned by now to leave the night before our meetings. Okay. Squirrel. Has anybody seen Mr. Squirrel?
The Forest has been preparing just for you. Visit a forest near you today. To learn more about cool things to do in the forest, visit discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
You're listening to The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
Our text line is always brought to you by Clark's Pump and Shop, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Let's go to our text line. First up, texter says, Paul, I know you love hockey, but what about wrestling? Big in high school in West Virginia. Plus, in my day, Marshall had some great wrestling. Not so expensive to do. Saw some great matches back in the day. Appreciate that comment. That's a good thought, actually. How much would it cost to put together a wrestling program outside of course, hiring your staff? And would you do that in the Henderson Center? Probably. How difficult would it be? You'd have to, of course, have the proper flooring. You'd have to probably have the proper equipment. You can get all of that. How big would that be? Would that be something that would attract the crowd? Now, of course, you've got the wrestling tournaments that are held in Huntington every year. So I know that there are a lot of people that come far and wide to see high school wrestling in Huntington. Would that translate to being able to do it at the Division I level? Could that attract, what would we say, 1,000 people maybe? And what's that cost anyway? I'd have to research more just to know roster limits, scholarship limits, and of course with NIL, all that stuff's going to change. But that would be interesting to see. Could you do, in an inexpensive way to get it started, could you put together a functioning competitive wrestling program? You remember when it was thrown out there, beach volleyball at Marshall, which I think would be great, totally doable. But could you add wrestling to the list of programs offered at Marshall University? And remember, sometimes you put together things like this to bring in more dollars. Enrollment at the university as well. Remember, Rio Grande is adding football. Why is Rio adding football? Well, part of that's enrollment. Now, at a lower level, there's different things that you have to consider as far as funding, what you're going to get for that, but that's to add enrollment. And that's not going to be the purpose of the wrestling program, but I do like the idea because Marshall had wrestling. It's something that once upon a time existed at Marshall University. And could it exist again? And how competitive could it be? I like it. I appreciate it. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255 is our text line, brought to you by Clark's Pump and Shop. And at the same time, you really could attract some of the best and brightest in the state of West Virginia. You could keep some kids home. Keep that in mind. You could keep some kids home when it comes to a lot of wrestling being held, high school programs across the state. You could keep a lot of kids home. If you look at the rankings right now, coaches poll, Penn State's top of the heap, Oklahoma State. You have programs like Iowa, Northern Iowa, Nebraska, Minnesota, NC State, Ohio State, Virginia Tech. You could put together a schedule, and of course, and that could be something you could compete with WVU. You could compete with other programs easily. You could put together a schedule. I just don't know how feasible that would be at Marshall University as far as being able to get that and put it together. Now, if I was looking to add sports, first thing I would think about, what can you add to your existing lineup that you don't have that you can add quite easily? And my first thought is, since we're going down this track, my first thought is the Sun Belt sponsors men's tennis. And so, could you add men's tennis to Marshall University? Because right now on the men's side of things, Marshall has baseball, basketball, cross country, football, golf, soccer, indoor track and field, outdoor track and field. Missing tennis. These are the sponsored sports in the Sun Belt. On the women's side, you have basketball, cross country, golf, soccer, softball, swimming and diving, which is doing well at the conference championships, tennis, indoor and outdoor track and field, volleyball. What are you missing that's sponsored from the Sun Belt? And that's beach volleyball. So do you look at it from, let's find a way to fill out our program with all the sponsored sports in the league, and then maybe you branch out a little bit. Could you do wrestling? Because wrestling is not a sponsored sport in the Sun Belt. So there's a question. Where would Marshall compete? How would Marshall put this together, and then where would Marshall compete? But I like the idea. Anything else we're missing? Of course, I'm going to push for that ice and that hockey program. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255 is our text line to be a part of today's show here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. So with the win last night, standings are still a little bit in flux for the men. 3 games to go. Is it possible for Marshall to secure a spot in the top 4? Marshall's 9-6, 2 games back. You have South Alabama that's 11-4. 11-4, 3 to go. James Madison 11-4. So 2 teams battling for the top spot. And then Arkansas State, Troy, and App State all 1 game back. So Marshall has a chance to maybe move itself up, put itself in possibly 5th place. So with 5th place with App State, Marshall would still have to have some things happen for it to get into maybe one of those top 4 spots. But if Arkansas State and Troy started to fall apart these last few games and Marshall can win out, stay ahead of App State, maybe a top 4 finish is possible. Right now, 3 to go, anything could happen. But with Marshall being 2 back and 3 to go, Marshall's not getting a top spot. 3 or 4, outside shot. 5 or 6, probably more realistic, but I'm okay with that. If Marshall is in a 5 or 6 spot, I'm okay with that. That's a good place. That's good enough place for me to have confidence that Marshall could possibly make a run. Get warmed up a little bit. And then finish out and make a run. But Marshall's got to win out for me to feel confident in that. Back to our text line, 304-396-TALK, brought to you by Clark's Pump and Shop. Texter says, Paul, we've got a river. Rowing. I'd actually watch a little rowing. That wouldn't be a bad sport to add at Marshall. And wasn't it talked about before? And it's a prestigious. You can have men's and women's rowing teams. The athletes, and they are athletes, this is a year-round sport for them. And so, would that be feasible? What's that in budget-wise? What's that cost you? how much does it cost to have a team compete at the college level? And could you beat Harvard or Yale? That's probably the big question. Can you beat Harvard or Yale? You've got Division I, II, and III. Obviously, Marshall would want to compete at the Division I level. And so, and I'm thinking about this. That wouldn't be bad. That would not be a bad opportunity for Marshall. Where would Marshall compete, though? And I'm not talking about on the river, obviously. But where would Marshall compete? How many conferences are there in rowing? Again, I'd have to research. I'm not that familiar with all the leagues, all the conferences that sponsor rowing, but I'm sure there would be a conference that you could latch onto. You can be an associate member. I know there's a lot of push for rowing, and listener just texted in and said the MAC would be a good fit. Marshall and Ohio on the Ohio River, the Battle of the Ohio River. Could you imagine that? I like it. Absolutely like it. It would be interesting. You could have beach volleyball and you could have rowing. You could have like a river complex. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. You know, we get into rowing during the Olympics. Does Ohio have a rowing team? Someone tell me, educate me on this one. Does Ohio have a rowing team? 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Okay, I got to research this now. I got to look at all the schools that have rowing and see if Marshall could compete with some of them. We'll do that when we continue. We'll get more of your texts in as well. Brought to you by Clark's Pump and Shop, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. This is The Drive, ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
Stalwart Insurance is the name for insurance in the tri-state. They are committed to delivering tailored benefit solutions with thoughtful, strategic planning with valuable professional services. Stop by or call Stalwart Insurance for your homeowner's insurance needs. Stalwart Insurance is located right beside Kenny Queen Hardware on Route 10 in Barbersville. Call Stalwart Insurance anytime at 304-552-3883. That's 304-552-3883. Or visit them online at stalwartinsurance.com.
It's the biggest savings event of the year. Menards' 11% rebate sale is here. Save big money on everything you need for any project. We've got something for everyone. Homeowners, contractors, DIYers, the kids, and even grandma. Get an 11% rebate on everything at Menards.
Save big money at Menards.
11% mail-in rebate is a merchandise credit check. Good on future in-store purchases. See menards.com for details.
My friends swim no matter the season, but my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis can sometimes take me out of the moment. Now, thanks to Skyrizi and clear skin, count me in. With Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. 3 out of 4 people achieve 90% clear skin at 4 months.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis. And visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
Hey, Tri-State, Frank's Place is where friends hang out with friends. Stop on by for happy hour from 4 to 6 p.m. and a lot of daily specials. If you're a sports fan, we have what you want. From the biggest game in professional football, NBA, NCAA basketball, and the NHL. First responders, stop by Frank's Place and check out the specials we have for you. Frank's Place, located at the River Place Plaza, next to Fratelli's. Check us out on Facebook for weekly updates and specials. Frank's Place, your home away from home.
This is The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Follow at Paul Swann on X for Marshall sports updates and more.
Final segment for today's edition of The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. More for the text line this hour, brought to you by Clark's Pump and Shop at 304-396-TALK. 304-396-8255. Texter says, Paul, Marshall should be in the MAC for wrestling. Ohio used to have great wrestling. Maybe that's something Marshall and Ohio should think about. Talk about, hey, we could get this rivalry going again. There'd be a lot of people that would be interested in this. I don't know if it would work that way, but if you were going to say right now, I can start one sport, is it wrestling? Is that the one that a lot of Herd fans want to see? Or would it be something else? I'll leave that to you, but wrestling seems to be getting a little more of a push right now. And again, there's a great tradition of wrestling in the Mountain State. There's a great tradition. Huntington is a great host for the state wrestling tournament and others. So there is a possibility that it could generate some interest. How much is probably going to be a question that should be asked, and how many people would be interested in maybe competing for Marshall. How many students could you keep in the Mountain State if Marshall offered a program? I mean, same thing with track. I mean, now that you opened it up and you have a men's track program, a true program for both the men and women, you have an opportunity. It helps with your recruiting. You can go after more. You can bring more students in. You can help with your football program as well, because there's going to be that one that wants to compete in track and have that opportunity. So it's not a bad idea. Just would it be a loss leader? Would it be something that you can maybe break even? How much is that going to cost you on a yearly basis? And, of course, you'd have to offset that, right? Now, how would you offset that? Or would you have to offset that anymore? What's going to be the future of Title IX, especially with NIL and the challenges there? Not necessarily you're going to have equal treatment with NIL. Everything is going to sort itself out eventually. Is that going to be something that maybe as an opportunity to bring back a sport like wrestling? Good stuff on that. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. That is our text line, brought to you by Clark's Pump and Shop. And, of course, rowing came up a couple more times on the text line. It'd be an interesting sport to see Marshall try to compete in. Could it succeed? Could it succeed, and could you generate enough interest to maybe make it work? I mean, would this be a team that would travel a lot? What's the logistics there of travel? What kind of facilities would you need? What kind of training facilities? Because you gotta obviously have facilities to kind of make this work. You've got the water. You just need a place to put the boats now, is probably my simplistic analysis of this. You got to put the boats somewhere. You got to have a facility. You got to have coaching. You have to have staffing. You have to have resources. Does that work? Is that inexpensive enough? Can you do that? Or is wrestling just, okay, we got a coach, here's an office space for you, here's this great weight room we have here, you have this indoor facility, you guys can do all kinds of training in there. We'll throw some mats down on match day, and we'll sell tickets, and people can come in, and we'll have several matches going on. And would the Henderson Center be the perfect venue for that? Would it be a good venue for that? I know the arena, the Mountain Health Arena, Marshall Health Arena, it changes its name so often. That's been a good venue for high school wrestling. Could you make that work at the collegiate level? And could it generate enough interest to be worth returning to the Marshall Athletic Department? That's going to be a question I'm sure a lot of people would wrestle with if Marshall was looking to bring back sports. And I think men's tennis would be something to bring back. You can pair that with women's tennis, and I would love to see facilities expanded for tennis. And, of course, if you want to just be competitive in all sports, the Sun Belt, bring the beach volleyball. Bring it to Huntington. Where you put it, I need to know. But we're talking about competing in every sport in the Sun Belt. You're missing men's tennis, you're missing beach volleyball, and then you can have yourself a complete run at that Commissioner's Cup. Coming up tomorrow, we got Marshall basketball. Marshall taking on App State, the Mountaineers. App's coming into this one 17-10, 10-5 in league play. Marshall, 6th place, 16-12, 9-6 in league play. This is going to be first of 2 matchups between the two. The Mountaineers have won 5 of their last 6 games and 6-2 record at home in conference. Marshall, 4-4 on the road against league opponents. Through 15 Sun Belt games, Marshall, 3rd in field goal percentage, right ahead of App State. App's 4th. And, of course, you've got an outstanding rebounder at App State, graduate forward C.J. Huntley. He is averaging almost 10 rebounds a contest. He is tied for 2nd, ahead of Marshall senior forward Nate Martin, 9.1 rebounds a contest, and that puts him at 4th. So this is an important one. This is an opportunity for Marshall to maintain and get ahead of App State. And App State, this is an opportunity to put some distance between itself and Marshall and try to elevate itself into one of those top 4 spots. So there's a lot riding on this one. There'll be a lot riding on the 2 home games coming up on Tuesday and Friday. And wherever you may be, if you can't go to the game, don't worry. We've got you covered. Airtime tomorrow, going to be high noon right here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. And you can also listen to it on our sister station, 93.7 The Dog. So it should be fun. I'm looking forward to seeing you all here tomorrow. Don't forget, you can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Paul Swann. Also, we're branching out a little bit. I've got this new app. It's called Blue Sky. A lot of sports personalities have transitioned over to Blue Sky. It's different, but it's sort of like old school Twitter. It's worth a check. And I'll be there a lot as well. So if you're looking for a different social media platform, and I'll tell you, again, there's a lot of sports people on Blue Sky, so you get a lot of the same content and maybe some different stuff you haven't gotten before. Check it out. You can find me there at Paul Swann. And I'll be back with you tomorrow. High noon. Marshall, App State. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. And if you missed anything today, or you want to go back, or you want to listen on your schedule and you can't listen live all the time, get the podcast available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Totally free. Just hit that like, that subscribe button, whatever the button may be on what you use, and you'll have episodes delivered to your device when they're uploaded. Thanks for tuning in. Back with you tomorrow here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
Broadcasting from the Dave & Buster's studios. Eat, drink, play, and watch at Dave & Buster's in the Huntington Mall. ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. WRBC, W231BS Huntington.